everyone. My name is Autumn.
And today I want to share an idea with you about an orange. And it's a very simple idea, but it goes unnoticed by millions. And I want to share an idea with you that has the potential to change your reputation in your community. An idea that, if fully grasped, can revolutionize your life as well as the life of your future generation. So the interesting thing about this orange is that it traveled miles from where it was produced and grown. And yet this same orange that traveled miles away is feeding me today. And that leads me to ask you the question, are you mindful of the seeds you're leaving behind? All of us are leaving behind seeds and impressions in the lives of people that we encounter. And I wanted to know if you are thinking about how that is traveling, how far it's traveling. It has the potential to travel for miles. And it has the potential to be able to positively or negatively affect the lives of people that you encounter on a daily basis. And that's the thing about the orange, is that it takes one seed to create an entire grove. But likewise, it also takes one seed to create an entire forest of manchineal trees, the deadliest tree in the world. And so that leads me to a story.
A few years ago, Evan and I felt God place in our hearts these words, "Feed my sheep." At that point, we accepted and we told God we'll do it. We'll take him up on his offer. We understood that it meant feeding his sheep his word, as well as feeding them literally as well. Over the years, we've always took on missions of helping others in need. And, it's something that we were passionate about throughout our lives.
Yes.
We were getting to a point where we felt like doing it more consistently. And so one evening, as Evan was driving home, he came across a young man who was standing in the rain with a sign stating that he needed help. Evan felt led to help him, and the response and the impression that it left on him
It
never
stayed
left.
with me. Yeah. And so I came home and I told God, and I said, I want to do more of this. I'm going to do this pretty much for the rest of my life. And so in the months that followed, Autumn and I, we impressed upon God and petitioned God for what we wanted to do more of. And that was to help people more consistently. And so what we did was we decided to, make that change. And one of the things that I got a nudge was that God wanted me to do something that was almost like a suicide mission. It was to leave my job without telling my wife, and during the pandemic. And so I was like, okay, God, I want to live. So I put that off for months. And so I ended up still having that nudge in my heart to do what he's asking me to do and to trust him. And so after months of, deliberation and trying to really seek him and get answers, I ended up handing in my letter of resignation. And it was without telling my wife. And her response was interesting.
As you all see, he's still alive. So he's still here with us. So one Sunday afternoon, as the day was coming to a close, Sunday evening, as the day was coming to a close, we were, hanging out in the living room, and I turned and I said, "Hey, hon, don't you have to get ready for work tomorrow?" He took a pause and he just, looked at me and said, "No." So I said, I knew it wasn't a holiday weekend. And so I said, "Were you fired?" He said, "No." So I knew what that meant. And I jumped up off of the sofa, so filled with anger and desperation for wondering, what are we going to do? Because at that point, I had, left my job to take care of our daughter so we can start a family. And the moment I jumped up, I froze. Those words that I intended on saying never came out. And I felt this voice just telling me to rest, to sit my butt back on the sofa and rest. And I listened. And as I sat there, I felt peace, complete peace, that I could to this day, I just can't explain where it came from, other than I know it was God in that time.
Yes.
Yes.
And so up until then, we were able to live on our savings for a few months, and we were pretty much, have never been late for our bills, and we were never late for our rent. But at that point, we were getting to a point where we were running out of our money. And so eventually we ran out of it. And every time I attempted to change the situation, I felt anxiety, and I just didn't feel the peace that I felt when I just rested and trusted God. And so this was a picture that we took when we had ran out of everything. And we were pretty much, half of the house was packed because we stepped out of faith and packed it, even though we didn't have the money. And we took this picture to take our minds off of what was going on. And we were about the happiest, moneyless people you would have ever seen. And so we decided to let the landlord know that we weren't able to pay him. And so we told them that what our situation was, and they were nice, and they decided to, let us leave at the end of the month, and we were able to leave. They told us we can leave on good terms at the end of the month, but the problem is that we had no money. So we still packed the house in faith, believing that God was going to come through for us. And we were like, okay, the end of the month came, okay, no God. I'm like, okay, where are you, Lord? So we had to reach back out to the landlord and let them know, okay, we're not able to pay it. And we let them know we just need a little bit more time. So they gave us 2 more weeks. And so we're praying, okay, God, what do you need us to do next? And so 2 weeks came, nothing. And so we're like, okay, God, where are you? Like, they need their rent, and what are you doing? And so that pretty much led us to get to a place where I had to make a decision, because we didn't know that Rock Bottom had a department under that until the lights got cut off. And the landlord had the lights cut off. And so then on top of it, our phones got cut off. So I had to make a decision. I said, okay, I'm gonna reach out to my dad, who I've never reached out to before for help. And he was able to help us to get the lights and everything turned back on the phone. And without his help, we wouldn't be here. So that happened. And then after that, the landlord reached back out again with the final offer.
Yes, the landlord reached back out with the final offer, and that offer was to still once again leave on good terms. And the only thing was, he offered to give us our security deposit back as well. We still had no income to get the move-in truck or a storage unit to move. We accepted once again in faith, believing that God would come through for us. And shortly after that, we got notification that we received a check at our P.O. box. And that's actually how we were able to purchase the storage unit, as well as book the rental truck to move to Valdosta. And that leads me to the interesting thing was that we'd never heard of Valdosta prior to arriving here September 11, 2020.
Right, and upon the helping the poor, and mind you, during this time, we never stopped helping the homeless. Like, with no money, we had food and supplies stocked up, and that was how we were able to help them. We never stopped doing that. In spite of us not having any money, we had a garden, we had supplies and things like that. So we still kept helping them. And it was one day where we were taking the food to the homeless, and there was a bulk sweet potato box that we had. And it said Lake Park, Georgia. And I decided, okay, let me look that up. And so we looked it up, and Valdosta came up. And we never heard of it, but when we did our research and we looked it up, we kind of felt peace with that. And so we decided, maybe this is where he's sending us. And so we pretty much moved forward with that, and decided after the landlord, they offered to give us our security deposit if we were to go at the end of the week. And so with the money from the P.O. box, we packed up, and we gave the keys, and we put in Valdosta Target. In
we
Valdosta,
knew we
Georgia, in the GPS, and we pressed go. And it was one of the best road trips we've ever had.
Yes.
And thus far, and then so our little girl, she was ready to go. We were ready to go. And we just made the trip and trusting God the entire time, the entire way. And that's what we did. We pretty much trusted Him the entire time that we were coming down here.
Yes. So the road trip came to a close. We ended up in Valdosta, Target's parking lot in Valdosta.
Yes.
And that's when we were back to reality, wondering, okay, God, we're here now. We trusted you this far. Where will we spend the rest of our days? Like, where will we sleep even tonight? And, we prayed about it. He said, specific place where we went to. We stayed there for a little bit, and then we eventually moved into an extended stay. And a while after, Evan was able to find employment here in Valdosta. But one thing we also kept doing was, while we lived at the extended stay, we kept giving. So we kept volunteering and giving, as much as we could, even though we didn't have a home. And, after that, we wondered, God, we're still giving. What's going on? We're still giving, but where are you? We still don't have a home. And I felt the only thing that's holding his hand back is the fact that we haven't cut the cord 100% to Philadelphia, and which meant getting rid of the storage unit, so we had no safety net to run back to. So Evan and I, we sat down and we discussed but giving the storage unit back to the church that we went to, giving the contents in that storage unit.
Yes, we donated the storage unit to a church that we met. And that same day that we did that, and we donated the storage unit, we got a call from the owner of an apartment that we looked into. And he called us and he was offering us to move in with just a security deposit. Yeah. And he told us, this is God, because I want the money. And so he allowed us to move the next day. And it was the same day that we gave our storage unit away. So after that, we saw the pressing need down here, and we formed Mindful Generation. And that is an organization that's designed to help families who are suffering behind closed doors. And God needed us to experience what the people we were helping experience. And so that was what we had to go through. We had to experience what they felt and what they were in the sensitive areas that we don't really understand what they're going through behind their closed doors. Yeah. And so that's the interesting thing about this orange, is that there are so many different impressions that we're leaving every day in the lives of people that we encounter. And so we're comfortable, but yet we're unfulfilled. And we were willing to disrupt our lives to give our dream a chance and to obey God. And so that was one of the things that I realized during this time that we were writing this message. And that was that, like this orange, everyone in this room, we started out as a seed. And our question is, what are you here to produce? And how many people are on the planet that are here to eat from that fruit that you produce, which is your gift?
Yes. So we truly believe that God's design for us is to live full as we pour out our gifts into the lives of others, reaching the end of our time here on earth empty. God asked Evan and I to feed his sheep by using our gifts. And that's the divine legacy that we're leaving behind. Thank you.
Thank you.